It's been a second bruising day for Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, with bombshell evidence given by sacked former Foreign Office official Sir Olly Robbins. He was grilled by MPs on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. I sat through all of it so you don't have to. Here's a quick rundown of what happened. He told of constant pressure from Downing Street over Mandelson's vetting process after Lord Peter Mandelson was announced as Sir Keir Starmer's pick for the top job in Washington as US Ambassador. Sir Ollie said there'd been constant chasing from the private office at number 10 while vetting took place. The former civil servant, who was effectively fired for not passing on that the ex-Labour grandee had failed background checks carried out by the UK Security Vetting Service, would not disclose who had been involved. But he said there was an atmosphere of pressure and dismissive approach from Downing Street, suggesting there was never any interest, as far as I can recall, in whether, but only an interest in when the appointment had been cleared.
Firstly, as you say, when I walked into post as Permanent Undersecretary on the 20th of January last year, I wasn't walking into a vacuum. I arrived to a situation in which a due diligence report had been undertaken into Mandelson by the Cabinet Office, assessing the reputational risks and his fitness for office. The Prime Minister had then presumably taken advice on his fitness for office. The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. He'd been given access to the building, he'd been given access to low classification IT, and from time to time, for case-specific issues, he was being given access to higher classification briefing. So I'm afraid I walked into a situation in which there was already a very, very strong expectation, and you will have seen the papers released already under the humble address, that coming from number 10, that he needed to be in post and in America as quickly as humanly possible. The very first formal communication of this to my predecessor from number 10 private office being that they wanted all this done at pace and Mandelson in post before inauguration.
In an extraordinary admission, the former senior official told MPs there'd been a debate between the Cabinet Office and the Foreign Office over how to send Lord Mandelson to Washington with the appropriate clearance. A position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson, according to Sir Ollie. He added he was a member of the House of Lords, he was a Privy Councillor, the risks attending his appointment were well known, and had been made clear to the Prime Minister before appointment. Bear in mind, he worked for Global Counsel, he owned Global Counsel, a lobbying firm with links to Russia, to China, and of course he had links to paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, Ollie Robbins was recruited into the senior job at the Foreign Office after it was decided that Peter Mandelson would be the ambassador, after it was announced, and clearly he was told to get it sorted and make it happen. And when he did exactly what was asked of him, within the rules, as he understood them, he got fired by the Prime Minister. I think it fundamentally undermines the relationship between politicians and civil servants. I think it's bad for British government, and I think it's deeply unfair to Sir Olly Robbins.
But the biggest bombshell of all came when Sir Ollie revealed that Sir Keir Starmer wanted to make his comms director, Matthew Doyle, an ambassador. The former official revealed that he was under strict instructions not to tell the Foreign Secretary, which made him feel uncomfortable. This is extraordinary, given that Lord Matthew Doyle, who went on to get a peerage and then went on to have the Labour whip suspended for his close links to a man charged with possessing indecent images of children.
The Prime Minister wants us to focus on process and not his judgment. But this entire sorry episode is the direct result of his decision to make a direct appointment to one of the most senior roles in the FCDO of somebody who was wholly inappropriate for the role. So can the Prime Minister at least confirm to the House that this was a singular error of judgment and that his number 10 operation has not proposed political appointee for any other senior role in the FCDO?
Prime Minister.
In relation to the decision, yes, it was my decision. It was an error of judgment, and that's why I've apologised to the victims of Epstein. I've done it again today, and right to do so. In relation to the second point of his question, whether any other political appointments, I will have to just check on that and get back to him, because I'm not. There are very many appointments made. There are very many appointments made to senior positions, and I will just check that for him.
So what's Downing Street been saying about these extraordinary accusations? Number 10 denied showing a dismissive approach to Lord Mandelson's vetting for US ambassador. When asked whether Number 10 recognised the description by Sir Ollie, the Prime Minister's official spokesman said no, adding there's clearly a difference between asking for updates on an appointment and the idea of being dismissive about vetting. Downing Street went on to say that civil servants in the Prime Minister's private office had not been bullied or cajoled by Starmer's ex-Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Number 10 was asked whether Sir Ollie's claim that there was an atmosphere of pressure and constant chasing from within the private office about Lord Mandelson's vetting. But this all came after a 3-hour emergency debate in the Commons on the vetting issue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem the Prime Minister's got is no one believes him. The public don't believe him. The MPs on this side of the House don't believe him. His own gullible backbenchers don't believe him. So does the Prime Minister agree with me? He's been lying.
Prime Minister, please. Sorry, we don't use those words, and I'm sure the members withdrawn it.
Mr. Speaker, I have the greatest respect for you and your office, but I will not withdraw. That man couldn't lie straight in bed.
Order. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to leave.
In September, the Prime Minister stood at this dispatch box and told the House he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, a man whose relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein was public knowledge. The Prime Minister knew and backed him anyway. Now he claims he had no idea that this twice-fired government minister had failed MI6 vetting, despite journalists putting that directly to Downing Street that very same month. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. He appointed him, he defended him, and now he claims to know nothing. He is gaslighting the nation. So let's call this out for what it is. The Prime Minister is a barefaced liar, and if he had any decency left...
No, order. Sit and leave. Leave now. I'll name you otherwise. I'd go now if I were you. Leave. I'm not. Leave. I've no name. I've given the option to leave. I'd leave if I were you very quickly. Move before I read it and give me one option. Right, give me that. You have no duties. It's my duty to carry out and control this House. One chance. Do you want to leave now or not?
Right. To tell the truth,
I name Zara Sultana. Minister, I beg to move that the said member, be suspended from the House.
Mr. Speaker, call Jane Kitchen.
Jane Kitchen.
I beg to move that Zara Sultana be suspended from the service of the House.
The question is that Zara Sultana be named and leave this House. All those in favour? Aye. Leave. I'm sorry you've done this. I really am. Right.
Labour MP Sarah Champion admitted that voters do not like Keir Starmer personally in a scathing assessment of the Prime Minister's popularity. And it doesn't stop there. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband said Sir Keir's decision to appoint Lord Mandelson as US Ambassador worried both him and then Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who's now Deputy Prime Minister. Keep up, there's more. The Cabinet Minister admitted he steered well clear of the disgraced Labour grandee when he was Labour leader. Now, Sir Keir's Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood also voiced frustration with the government because she says we ourselves in the Labour Party are getting in our own way. Meanwhile, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner appeared at an event in central London on Tuesday where she said the government needs to take bolder action and employ a bolder story on how it is serving people across the country. Several media outlets reported over the weekend that Miss Rayner had met Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham at her home in Ashton-under-Lyne. Both are seen as potential contenders to replace the Prime Minister should a leadership contest take place. Now, these are not the stories, the quotes, the headlines that the Prime Minister will want to hear weeks before Britons head to the polls in local elections across England.
The Prime Minister personally decided to appoint a serious known national security risk to our most sensitive diplomatic post. Peter Mandelson was not just a man who had already been sacked twice from government for lying, not just a man who had a public relationship with a convicted paedophile, but a man with links to the Kremlin and China, links so close that they were raised as red flags with the Prime Minister before his appointment. Yesterday, the Prime Minister did not deny that he knew about these links before he appointed Mandelson. He could not deny this because, by his own admission, he had seen the documents that proved the links. I cannot overstate how serious a matter this is. The Prime Minister sent a known security risk to Washington, to a position where he would see our most important allies' top secret intelligence. What if he had seen something and leaked it to one of our enemies? How much would that have damaged our security partnership? We cannot even be sure that didn't happen. What is most extraordinary is the Prime Minister appointed Peter Mandelson before vetting was complete. He did this despite a letter from the then Cabinet Secretary, Lord Case, clearly expressing to the Prime Minister that the process required security vetting to be done before the appointment. So how can he then have claimed on the floor of this House that the process was followed when he knew that it had not been? He mentioned the word process, Mr. Speaker, more than 100 times in Parliament yesterday, but he was the one who didn't follow that process. Yes. This morning, we have heard the bombshell testimony of the former Permanent Secretary of the Foreign Office, Sir Olly Robbins. Sir Ollie Robbins had a long and distinguished career serving ministers. He is not the sort of person to give us a frank personal account of how things played out last January. So when he told us today that Downing Street put the Foreign Office under constant pressure to clear Peter Mandelson, that Number 10 showed a dismissive approach to Mandelson's vetting process, when he told us that it would have been very difficult indeed to deny clearance and that doing so would have damaged US-UK relationships, we know he is giving us the slightest indication of how bad things were.
Sir Keir, who faced a showdown on Monday in the Commons, will be back before MPs on Wednesday for Prime Minister's question. And no prizes for what Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader, is likely to take aim at him for. So stay tuned. We'll be back from Westminster tomorrow.